Welcome to this yin class, nice and short. So as usual, maybe a blanket, and at least for the end relaxation. Blocks, if you have blocks, what are we doing today? Maybe at least one, but I suppose usually you have a pair of blocks. Oops, little cat, I'm gonna borrow some cushions. Sorry, buddy. Go back to bed. It's okay, go back to bed. Again, he's showing off his good stretches. Cushions, probably something that can be quite handy. And we'll start right away. I'm pretty much into the pose with a saddle. So I'll just show you a few different ways to get in there. If you are not super flexible and that's a little bit tough on the knees, I recommend using a block or two if you're really, really tight and you really need to elevate, but that's probably a little bit too much, at least for me. And if you have a bolster, that's a good one. Otherwise, you will need quite a few cushions here. Sorry. Of course, he wants to go through that. So you would need a lot there. I don't know. Oh, what's happening today? I can't even stretch like this, really. It's actually a little bit too high, so maybe just one block. Otherwise, you need to really have something really, really high here to lean back. If this is way too much for your knees, you can just do one side at a time. And if you're quite flexible and you can already have, ideally, you want to have your pelvis, hips touching the floor. And you can just come down on your elbows. Again, you might find some support with the cushions, or if you can come all the way down and maybe stretching your arms overhead if you want to get more of a stretch into the upper chest. You just try to relax there. So we'll just be there for a few minutes, getting good stretch into obviously the quads, hip flexors. We're also compressing the lower back to start activating the jing, the ki in the kidneys. We're activating the stomach meridian here, spleen, and also heart and lung if you have your arms stretched overhead. Just try to really let the breath soften and relax. Minou. Psst, psst, psst. So if you're just doing one side, you can probably very slowly switch legs. Just a few more breaths here before we start to gently find our way out of this pose. So probably the best way would be to maybe grab onto your ankles and you push your elbows to come up. Or if you don't have any knee issues, you can also roll over onto one side, but that's sometimes a little bit tricky. Otherwise, you can just take a little breather, 1 or 2 breaths on your elbows, just so that you start coming up nice and easy. Pushing your hands on the floor, gently coming up to release, folding forward, and then coming onto your buttocks, stretching your legs forward. You can bring maybe a cushion under your knees. We'll take an easy caterpillar just to counter this pose. So it's good to have your legs nice and wide, just a soft band, so we're not really pulling too much into the back, just allowing the spine to regain or counter the previous pose. Again, a block. Could be a good idea to rest your forehead, and if you can also just bring your arms to relax in between your legs. This might allow you to find a little bit more depth into the pose. So again, it's not so much about here stretching the back of the legs, but really rather to let the spine round as a counter pose. Hey Minou. This one is a little bit unsettled today. So I think you should come and do some yin with me, huh? A little yin. Kitty cat, little yin to relax. Huh? Huh? Relax. Yeah, I think even cats sometimes need to practice yoga, even though they're very flexible, maybe a little bit too excited. Relax. Meow. Oh oui. Oh, Minou. Maybe he just needs love. So you can send him your love. Give yourself some love. That's always a good thing that we practice with yoga, whatever sort of practice you do, giving love to the body, the mind. And slowly coming up, and we'll find a square pose here. So we'll have the opportunity to fold forward a bit more. You can bring your left foot under your right knee, and you try to keep your shin parallel to the front edge of the mat, placing your right foot on top of your left knee. So you should have your foot ankle on top of the knee, knee on top of the ankle. So you really want to stack your shins as much as possible. If that's not possible, you can just cross one shin in front of the other. So that would be your easy option. If that's still quite tight, you can also use a blanket here to elevate your hips, so that will relieve a bit of pressure in the hips if they're a little bit too tight. If you can go the full way, you want to make sure that you flex your toes so that you protect your knee joint, and you really try to relax that knee, the right knee on the hip. You can either just stay there upright if that's where you're at. You can keep your palms open to the sky, maybe taking any mudra if you have a mudra in your practice. Or if you, again, want to go and fold, if you have a little bit more space in the hips, again, still making sure that your knees are not hurting, so flexing your toes. And you can start to relax your abdomen, chest, onto your thighs. You can come onto your elbows. Again, it's a good idea to maybe bring a block to rest your forehead. You can also take a mudra. Maybe I recommend the Yoni Mudra, where you bring your index thumb to touch, interlacing the other fingers. And see if you can really lengthen into the spine if you're folding forward, just so that you feel your lower ribs, just like if you wanted to place your lower ribs on your shin. And then you just soften, so you should really feel it in your right glute. Outside of the hip. Just taking a few breaths here. Minou. Monte pas ton cul. Viens là. Là, là, là. Couche. Là, là. Couche, couche. Oh, bah, il va me faire tomber ça. Just a few more breaths. And then slowly you can start to inhale, walking your hands back. Oh, that's a good release. You can lean back, hands onto the floor, and slowly you release. Maybe taking a few windshield wipers. That's probably a good way to release. You can swing your knees out one way and the other way a few times. Maybe getting into the lower back. Oh, any movement that feels good. And we'll get into the other side. So you can bring your right foot under your left knee. Again, trying to keep your shins stacked right on top of each other. Make sure you flex your toes, especially the top foot, because it gets a bit more into that top knee. Or adjust according to your own capacity. You can maybe wiggle a little bit to get into shape. Also, one practice is to maybe pull the flesh of the buttocks out. That really helps to get a bit deeper into the pose. Again, maybe staying straight up. Or you can start to come forward. Anything that is available to you. Again, you can maybe use, so that's where maybe 3 blocks can come handy if the floor is a bit too far away for you and you need maybe blocks for your elbows. Or maybe if one side is a little bit tighter than the other, which seems this is the case for me today. This side is tighter than the other side, so it's not quite as comfortable. So honor your body, the differences, left side, right side. Just try to keep feeling the breath, lengthening the spine every inhale and really soften, get into it every exhale. Again, nice and slow, we'll start releasing. Coming up as you inhale. Again, moving slowly so that you can really feel all the release. Making sure you're not jarring anything. Again, you can lean back on your hands. Just slowly releasing one leg at a time. You can find, again, a few windshield wipers, or maybe if you don't have any wrist or neck issue, you can find a little bit stronger, but a little tabletop to release the hips. And then we'll finish off with Anahata pose. So if you've got sensitive knees, you can maybe use a blanket for your knees, although you don't want to make it too high, otherwise it will make the pose a little bit harder. So for Anahata, you want to keep your hips right onto your knees. So you start just in a normal tabletop and you start walking your hands forward. So you might want to be using some blocks, maybe. If the floor, especially if you're using a blanket, is a little bit too sort of low, you can use blocks and you can start to release. It can actually even make it stronger if you want. If you bring your blocks sort of a little bit wider and you allow for your shoulders to open and you kind of fold in between the blocks. So the idea, this is also called melting heart. The idea is to get your heart towards the floor. So you can start with your forehead if you don't have any neck issues and you're more comfortable. You can also bring your chin, maybe not if you've got those blocks. So you can just try, see what works for you. Also, if you want to stretch your triceps maybe a little bit more, you can bring your elbows on the blocks. So you probably want to stay on your forehead here, and you can bring your palms to touch back of your head. So this stretches a bit more into the armpits and the triceps. Again, making sure that your hips are quite back. I mean, not too back, not as much as a child's pose, but you don't want your hips to come forward too much, so I'm probably a little bit forward. Ooh. Very tight shoulders. So we'll just be there for just a few minutes. You want to really try to feel like the back of the heart relaxing, letting the spine arch. So this can be a pretty strong pose. You don't want to force it too much. It will just come with practice, slowly, slowly. If you practice it, you'll start to get more flexible in the spine. Maybe the cat is going to show us. He's got great flexibility with this one. You want to show us? No. So, just a little reminder that it's probably best not to practice with animals around. Sometimes they might not be so yin. This one's got a lot of yang today, and that can be a bit of a distraction. But at the same time, distractions are always there, so it can be a good training, a good challenge to see how still your mind, how yin can you be. Staying focused with the practice. And then you can slowly start to come back. You can probably just stretch your hips back for a moment in a child's pose. To release the shoulders, you probably want to bring your knees together so that you bring your arms alongside your body, forehead to the floor, and you just let your shoulders drop over your knees. Feel that release. Trying to lengthen into the back of the neck. And just soften on your thighs for a few breaths. And slowly coming up, we'll just finish off with shavāsana. So if you want to have a longer shavāsana at home, you may switch off the recording, the video, whatever's happening, live streaming. Make yourself comfortable. If you need to use pillows, maybe under your knees, maybe one for the head, cover yourself. I personally like shavāsana straight on the floor, so you can really feel the spine stretching, softening onto the mat, maybe little cracks. This helps to keep the neck long, which I think is better unless you have neck issues. And you can keep your palms open to the sky and just relax completely. Again, you can stay for as long as you want. Maybe play a little yoga nidra. I have some good videos of yoga nidra. Or maybe just a few minutes. Maybe just taking one last little pause if you feel you need some release into your hips. Maybe just happy baby, relaxing the lower back, the hips. Maybe gently swaying from one side to the other. Any movement that feels good before you find your final relaxing shavāsana. Letting go completely of everything. Any physical disturbance. Letting go of the breath. Any mental activity. Just let go completely. If you are practicing at home and feel that you just want a longer shavāsana to relax completely, you're most welcome to switch off the recording and go on for as long as you want. Maybe a strong suggestion is to put one of my yoga nidra videos or recording that you can find on my YouTube channel, Yoga Essence Institute. And I hope you enjoyed this yin class, short and sweet, which you can practice as many times as you want. Again, followed by yoga nidra is a great combo. nice, relaxing in the evening. So if you're just here for the yin, relax into your shavāsana, and I'll see you next time on the mat. Hari Om.